Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Chapter 3, Chapter 7, Text 26. Translation and commentary by Srimad Bhagavad-gita. O son of Mitra, kindly describe how the planets are situated above the earth as well as underneath it, and also please mention their measurement as well as that of the earthly planets. Yasmin vigyate sarvam evam vigyatam bhavati. This Vedic hymn declares emphatically that the devotee of the Lord knows everything material and spiritual in relationship with the Lord. Devotees are not simply emotional, as is ill-conceived by certain less intelligent men. Their direction is practical. They know everything that is and all the details of the Lord's domination over the different creations. Vidura is inquiring from Maitreya Muni about some information which doesn't seem to be very Krishna conscious. He's asking about cosmology. Of course, everything in relationship with Krishna is Krishna conscious. Particularly, we find throughout the Bhagavad-gita also, that as a beginning stage for conditioned souls, it is recommended to try to understand God in terms of His greatness. And particularly that great, how will we understand what is His greatness in relationship to what we see all around us? We accept this as the reality, this material world. If we understand how great it is, and who is creating all of this and maintaining it and destroying it, and how to Him all of this is not very important anyway, because it's only like the backyard of His real abode, which is the spiritual world. Then, like this is called Shaka Chandra Jnana, that the logic of the branches and the moon, that if the mother is to indicate the moon to the child, there's the moon. Which is the moon? You see that tree, the two branches, you see that big thing? Shh. See that big thing, that big ball shining in between the two branches? That's the moon. So something he's familiar with, the tree in his courtyard, you indicate that first, and then you see this is. There's also Vishishta Arundhati. Vishishta is Vasishtha is a sage whose planet is very prominent in the sky. His wife, as a good wife, she stays next to him, but her star is very small, so we have to point out Arundhati, which is his wife's name. You see, first you see that star, that's Vasishtha. You see that? Okay. First you saw that, alright. Now you see that little tiny thing next to that shining? That's. So in the same way, the real object of knowledge is Krishna. But to understand Krishna, we may try to understand Him in terms of this material world, that which we are familiar with. Therefore, this is one of the main reasons why we find in the Bhagavatam there's descriptions of the universe. Another reason is to convince us of what Krishna, all these big descriptions of the universe, and succinctly Krishna summarizes it all in Bhagavad-gita, Brahma Bhuvana Loka Punaravati. That this material, everything from Brahma's planet down to the bottom part of the universe, all are places in misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. Dukhalaya Mashashvata. It is a place of misery. Everything here is temporary. So the description is given in the Bhagavatam of the different planets, even of the heavenly planets. And when we read in the 5th canto about the Bhagavatam about the heavenly planets, there are rivers of mango juice. Well, in Croatia you don't know what mango juice is. Or you might have it, but it's not like you get milk carrying the rust. It's famous in Gujarat, mango juice. So tastes very nice. Mango is the king of fruits. So you might think, well, that sounds right. There are rivers of mango. How does it come? There are trees with huge mangoes, as big as elephants. And they drop on the ground by their weight. They open up, so you don't even have to put it in a mixing machine. And it just flows in rivers. That sounds good, doesn't it? And wait a minute, that's not all. There are also beautiful apsaras who are very willing to cooperate. And without using contraceptives, they don't take birth. They don't give birth. Only when a woman gives birth in the heavenly planets, it means it's time for her to die. She just gives birth one time, and then she has to go back to the factory in Zagreb or whatever. So, sounds pretty good, doesn't it? But Bhagavatam also describes there are some problems also. The problem is that sense gratification doesn't bring any happiness. Even if you drink lots of mango juice, and what to speak of somaras, which is like wine, but you don't get headaches afterwards. And not only that, it doesn't only give you. Not only does it not give you liver cancer, but it makes your body strong and healthy, and you can live for a long time by drinking somaras. So it sounds very good. That's why people, when they hear about this, want to go. They perform austerities to go to the heavenly planets. We find so many rishis. Indra would try to disturb their austerities because he's afraid. I'm Indra, I got to this position, now they're going to come and take over my position. So many rishis, they're performing austerities with the aim of going to the heavenly planets. So it sounds very desirable, but Srimad Bhagavatam is meant for Paramahamsas, or those aspiring to be Paramahamsas. They've understood. That's not happiness. You see, even Indra, he has so much, even he got that position with so much difficulty, but he has so many anxieties. He's always in fear. The nature of this material world is that everyone is full of fear, even in the heavenly planets, because he's always afraid that the demons will come and attack me and take away my position, or some rishi by his austerities will overtake my position. And because he's in material consciousness, he has a tendency to do stupid things like insult his guru and then get cursed. So all this is described in the Bhagavatam. And again, succinctly, whatever is in the Bhagavatam in detail, it's given briefly in the Srimad Bhagavad-gita. Titam bhuktva swargalokam vishalam kshine punye martyalokam vishanti. Lord Krishna states that having enjoyed that vishala sukh, that tremendous sukh, that tremendous happiness by material standards, then one has to come back into this world. Here, it means on this earth planet, birth and death, that takes place very quickly. Whereas in the heavenly planets, the demigods are called Amara. That's a kind of cheating. It means those who don't die. It seems that they don't die. It means they live for a long time. But they also have to die. Enjoying. But they're also sometimes might have to leave this situation. So all this is described. I want to speak of the description of the hellish planets. It's not difficult to go to the hellish planets. It's actually easier to go to the heavenly planets. All you have to do is pull a few wings off some flies or do some horrible thing like that. Even if you don't properly receive a guest, then we have to go to it's described. We have to go to the hellish planets. So that's described also. And the general situation is described. It's all miserable. So here, Vidura is asking Maitreya Muni to describe what is the situation of the different planets in the universe, but not as a kind of simply we like to hear about it, like they have this Discovery Channel on the what is that? The TV. They have some Discovery Channel. You have that information? But they show different parts of the world. How people are living there, and they show about different species of life, penguins and all this kind of thing. And it's very interesting. It's interesting to see. It fulfills a sense of curiosity to see how people in Tibet are living, and people in the Samoan Islands, and how people in different parts of the world are conducting their eating, sleeping, mating and defending in various ways, and how the animals are also doing. So Vidura, he wasn't interested as a matter of curiosity to hear all these things, but he wanted to hear about it in relationship with the absolute truth, Krishna. Anything discussed, if it's not in relationship with Krishna, then it is, even if it's Vedic knowledge, then that's described by Narada Muni. He told Vyasa, he went to so much trouble compiling all the Vedic literature. That is Vaya Samtirtha. It is like a pilgrimage place for crows. Crow-like people, they will be attracted to literatures which do not describe Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and which do not delineate that the only meaningful purpose of life is to surrender to Krishna. So any other literatures, Narada Muni told us, is simply appealing to crow-like persons. Example is given because crows, they like to eat garbage. They'll eat anything. They particularly like garbage and dead bodies. There are dead bodies that crows will come. And the first thing they go for is the eyes. They like the eyes. That to them is the most tasty. The dogs come and they like for them the intestines is the most tasty. So you have to see all these things. Living in the uncivilized part of the world. Here, any dead body, they immediately just take it and drive it away. No, people should not see it. But living in India is a nice education. You go to see all these different things. You don't just hear about pigs eating stool. You get to see it, and if you're not careful, when you're out in the field in the morning, they'll come and knock you over. They're so eager to get fresh breakfast. So, this birth, death, old age and disease, that is the nature of the material world. So devotees, they're not interested in it for its own sake, but they want to hear about it in relationship with Krishna. How Krishna is creating, maintaining and destroying these worlds, how Krishna appears in these worlds, and how everything in this world is miserable, and everything conceived of without Krishna is simply miserable and simply a failure. Everything must be a failure without Krishna. Prabhupada asked Satsvarupa Maharaj to write a book. The things without Krishna fail. And he gave some little comment that you see there are so many great leaders, Gandhi, Napoleon, Churchill, all failures. They all went so much endeavor for the sake of their country. Guaranteed failure. Whatever they do, it's all a failure. Everything in this material world is a failure. Because even if you become a so-called success in the material world, even if you are able to, mostly people are not able to fulfill their material desires. But even those who do, someone who becomes very rich and very famous, but whatever, they have good facility. If you're rich and famous, then that means you have facility to indulge in all sensual pleasures. So even if you get all those things and you don't get sick, which is what usually happens, you find that people, they get rich and then they eat so many nice foods, and then their digestive system is completely finished, so that they can hardly eat anything. They've got so much money and the desire to enjoy, but they can't enjoy because their digestive system is spoiled. But even if you have all facilities to enjoy sense gratification, then still we have to die. So ultimately it's a failure. The endeavor to enjoy is always a failure. The endeavor to enjoy this material world, separate from Krishna. So Vidura is asking Maitreya, please describe these things. But it's understood that he wants to understand, just like the Sutta Goswami was was it Shonakadi Rishi saying that to Sutta Goswami, you please describe topics of Parikshit Maharaj, Yadi Krishna Katha Ashraya, if it's in relationship with Krishna. Of course, everything a pure devotee like Parikshit Maharaj has in relationship with Krishna. But they weren't so interested to hear about how he was brushing his teeth in the morning, or how he was talking to his wife, or something. That which will inspire us to hear, to understand about Krishna. What was he doing that was in relationship to Krishna. So everything in this world is in relationship to Krishna, but everyone in this material world has forgotten Krishna. So therefore it is the duty of those who have understood their relationship with Krishna to speak about Krishna and remind people who have very deeply forgotten Krishna. Very deeply forgotten. It's just like you may meet someone and you didn't meet them for 20 years. Oh yeah, remember we were at school together. Then you remember. But what if you forgot someone for billions of lifetimes? It may seem more difficult to remember. Of course, Krishna is always very close to us. Although you can't see someone if you turn your back to them. So if we're running away from Krishna, then we can't see it. So the duty of a devotee is to make people inclined to look towards Krishna. These very terms are used. Bahirmukh. Krishna Bhuli Se Jivanadi Bahirmukh. Those who have forgotten Krishna from time immemorial, Bahirmukh, literally means that they turn their face away from Krishna. And the other term is Unmukh, to turn our face towards Krishna, to be inclined towards Krishna. So it can be a very difficult job because everyone is, in the material world, everyone is inclined to that which is not for their actual benefit. They're inclined to search after material happiness, which is not for their own interest, but blinded by the very strong desires for sense enjoyment. They cannot understand what is actually for their benefit. Narottam Das Thakur says that Ahankare Mattahaya Nitai Pada Vasharya Ashaktari Shakta Karimaya. That due to ahankar, false ego, identifying oneself as something different from Krishna's servant. Ahankar, aham, I am, Ishvaraham, ham bhogi. I am the controller, I am the enjoyer, instead of recognizing Krishna is the controller, Krishna is the enjoyer. I am the controller, I am the enjoyer. This is called ahankar. So this is madness because we're not the controller or the enjoyer. It's a very simple thing to understand. If we claim to be something we're not, that is madness. You all know me, don't you? Yeah? My name is Adolf Hitler. Not right? Right? That's right, isn't it? I'm Adolf Hitler. Some people think. But if I am to insist, then you think that that's crazy. So there are people like that who they end up, and you don't see them much because they end up in psychiatric institutions. But they think they are some famous person, and because their life is insignificant, even everyone's life in material world is insignificant. Some are more insignificant than others. So they identify themselves with someone they'd like to be, but they're not, and therefore crazy. So in the same way, the conditioned soul thinks, Ishvaraham aham, I am the controller, I am the enjoyer, but he's not. Therefore it's crazy, that's all. Ahankari mattaya nitai padapasva. forgetting the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda. Everyone is thinking, I am something I am not. And then asatyare satya karimani. They take that which is not real to be real. And first of all, thinking I am the enjoyer and I am the control, that is not real. Then our whole vision becomes perverted. Everything, our whole way of seeing and thinking becomes perverted. We see that instead of seeing the whole universe as paraphernalia to be used in Krishna's service, we see it as something for me to exploit and enjoy. So this is insanity. But in the madhouse, everyone's mad and they think it's normal. And if someone actually acts in a manner which is not insane, then they think he's insane, because it's different. This is the situation. So the Shastra is given to us so that we can understand actually what is Sat, what is Satya, what is real, what is the fact, so that we can distinguish between Sat and Asat. Sat means reality. Asat means that which is unreal, or that which is not of. It's insubstantial. Unreal, just like we can look outside and see. There's a field with trees. So it's real, but it's not of substantial reality, because it's temporary. And not only is it temporary, but all the field, the flowers, the grass, these are all living beings who have grown up taking these bodies because of the asat, or improper desire, to enjoy separately from Krishna. So this whole world is asat. And sat, satya, the truth is that we don't belong here. We are all eternal servants of Krishna. So devotees, they know this. He said that. He stated, Yasmin vigati sarvamevam vigatam bhavati. That devotees know everything. Know everything means that they may not be atomic physicists or geographers or historians, not specialists, but they know the basic principles. Just like we see that Prabhupada was a greater scientist than all the professional scientists. Prabhupada to some extent was a professional scientist. In his apparently secular life, he was a pharmaceuticals manufacturer, so he had some knowledge. But his scientific knowledge was greater than any so-called scientist, just like this time on Newsweek, they made some survey and they made the greatest man of the 20th century, and they came up with Einstein. The greatest man of the 20th, maybe he was the greatest man or woman, I don't know. But anyway, came up as Einstein. And Einstein, he said that, well, having studied so many things, I just want to know how God created the universe. God knows, so he's the greatest scientist. And he doesn't know. Maybe if you want to discuss E equals MC squared with Prabhupada, he may not know all the details, but he knows the conclusion. So that means greatest scientist. Very practical. Prabhupada writes here, devotees are practical. Another example Prabhupada gave is that the chicken is a better scientist than the so-called scientists. Prabhupada said you should go all over the world and make big conferences on these 2 points. One, you didn't go to the moon. And number two, the chicken is a better scientist than you. Why? Because you are talking about producing life in future. But every day the chicken is laying an egg, producing life. So the chicken is a better scientist than you. Of course, we don't do things like that. If you want to be reasonable, nice, not disturb it. This was Prabhupada preaching. So practical. That's the point. Very practical. Just known. There's another example going like this. If you have an itch on your nose, you can go like. You could probably also go like that. But more practical suggestion is to go like this. Direct. So, Prabhupada writes here, devotees are not simply emotional, as is ill-conceived by certain less intelligent men. Devotees, they understand what is the absolute truth and can establish that by philosophical discussion. Of course, it's very difficult in the modern age because people are so far removed from anything philosophical. Practically, by the influence of this Mayavad, not exactly Mayavad. I mean, Mayavad means if you're going to discuss Mayavad, then it's a very complex philosophy. You have to know Sanskrit and so many things. But the basic mood of Mayavad, that I am you and you are me and we are all together. Ever heard that? It's from the Beatles. The next line is, sitting on a cornflake waiting for the sun to come. This is how I wasted my youth, listening to these stupid songs. So I am you and you are me and we are all together. So it's not exactly what Shankaracharya said. It's not, but it's the same kind of idea that everything's just all one. And therefore, everything is okay. The certain, can't exactly call them philosophers, pseudo-philosophers, they laud the great Paramahamsa, Ramakrishna, who came up with the saying, Jato mat tato vat, all paths are the same. This is wonderful. This is the culmination of what Shankaracharya said, and then this Ramakrishna just encapsulated it in a few. All paths. How wonderful. But if we examine what that means, then actually practically it doesn't make any sense, because all paths are not the same. Very, very easy to understand that. If you get on the road to Split, and they're driving and driving and driving, actually you're supposed to be going to Budapest. But, no, that's the same. It is not the same. You won't reach Budapest. You may reach to Split. You say, well, we will go all the way around the world and then we'll come to Budapest. But that's not true either, because if you try to do that, if you try to go from Split and then go around all the way, then you'll end up in the Adriatic Sea. And cars don't go on this. You'll just end up at the bottom of the ocean. Or more likely you'll end up in the crazy house, because it's a crazy idea to drive to Budapest via Split. If you're in Zagreb, if you're in Zagreb, etc. So this idea, everything's all the same, and therefore we should just, every idea is as good as any other, therefore we should just tolerate everything. Everything's nice. And what it comes down to is that just it's just an excuse for gross sense gratification. Because everything's nice. Everything's nice. Well, okay. Well, let's check it out. Let's check out everything. Top, bottom, inside, out, this way, that way, front side, back side, everything. It's, what's the most wonderful thing that we know? Sex. So, do it. Just do it. If you feel like it, you shouldn't. There's another thing. You shouldn't repress your emotions. It sounds very good. What it means is just have sex like an animal. That's what it comes down to. And this is the philosophical outlook. There's no philosophy. And then people just indulge in, they're encouraged to indulge in all kinds of so-called enjoyment without restriction. And then it becomes very dull, extremely dull. If one doesn't control his senses, then one becomes like an animal, which means dull. Dull-headed. Can't speak Bhagavad-gita to a dog or a monkey. They don't have any capacity to understand. So if humans become like dogs or monkeys, acting like that, thinking like that, then it's very difficult to speak anything philosophical to that. So, devotees, therefore, they try to make people come to Krishna consciousness, giving these books of philosophy. If there's anyone, there are people, of course there are many people who still have some brains. So it's not all turned to stupid. There's still some grey matter, it's not all brown matter yet. So there are many people who, by reading these books, maybe from some inclination towards Krishna consciousness they had in previous life, or due to the influence of hearing the holy names, or even the fact that they gave a donation for this book, which is a very auspicious thing to give a donation from its books. It's devotional, it's the beginning of devotional service. So people, by taking these books, there are many people who just receiving these books, then it's just like a jerk. They read the book and all of a sudden you can understand, oh, this is something completely different from any other book I've ever read. Because there are no books like this. You can go in the library, there's so many thousands of books, and they're producing, I heard in Czech Republic, they're producing 40,000 new books a year in Czech language alone. And how many is it in English? It must be millions. So many books, so much garbage. And these books are something completely different, because they go right through to the soul. Any other way. Even you see there are certain books which are supposed to be like helping people and higher level of consciousness, but it only, maximum it goes up to the mental and emotional side. It doesn't go to the soul. It doesn't give knowledge of the soul. We should be good, we should be nice, we should deal with this. So that's all right. We're not against that. We're not advocating that people shouldn't be good or shouldn't be nice. But without knowledge of who we actually are, that we are spirit souls, part and parcel of Krishna, we cannot actually be good or nice to anyone. If we're perpetuating an illusion which is causing us to suffer, then that is not niceness. Just like that Prabhupada gave that example from his own personal life, that the one brother, he was sick with typhoid, so he asked another brother, please bring me some paratha to eat. And the brother gave, he's being nice, being very nice, but the result of that is he gets more sick. So niceness is to not give the paratha. I want to eat. Oh, we should be nice to him. All right. And then, by being nice, that one brother who was nice and gave the paratha, he got a beating from his mother. Why? I was just being nice to my brother. But you were perpetuating his sickness. It's very dangerous. You can die in typhoid if you eat heavy food like that. So he was punished. And he was only trying to be nice. But he didn't know what was required to be nice. To be nice in such a circumstance means to deny what that person wanted, because he didn't know what was good for him. So in the same way, people are trying to be nice, be good, and this and that, care for others, but if we don't understand what is the actual benefit of others, then we can't benefit them. It's very practical, isn't it? We cannot benefit someone unless we know how to benefit them. And then we have to know what is their ultimate need. So nowadays there's a lot of talk in our movement also about caring for others. It's all right, that's good. But we should understand that caring for others doesn't mean simply to cater to their mental and emotional states. Caring for others means to teach them how to become a pure devotee of Krishna and transcend their mental and emotional states. But I'm feeling like this. Oh, okay. No, not okay. You're feeling like that because you're envious of Krishna. That is the problem. The problem is not that people are not coming up to you and saying, oh, okay, never mind, we'll be nice. That is not the problem. The problem is that we're envious of Krishna, therefore we are identifying with our minds and our bodies. So if we indulge people in that, in the name of caring, that's not caring for others, that's cheating others. Real caring means to give people a formula by which they can get free from birth and death, by which they can become Krishna conscious, which means to follow the program of Krishna consciousness as given by Srila Prabhupada and all our acharyas. That is the solution. Otherwise, different psychological adjustments, it's on the mundane platform. Of course, we may say that, well, first of all, we have to get psychologically adjusted, then we can take to Krishna consciousness. We'll never be psychologically adjusted because this material world means that we're psychologically maladjusted. The adjustment is to become Krishna conscious. No, first of all, I'll clear away all my psychological... It's an illusion. First of all, we'll make everything in this material world nice, then we'll take to Krishna consciousness. But the material world is not nice by its very nature. So it's a ridiculous proposal. The real proposal is chant Hare Krishna. This is the real medicine for material life. Surrender to Krishna. Give up our material attachments. Stop identifying with this body. That is the solution. But people, they like this. Just like you see there are New Age gurus, just like in India. There's this rascal, Ravi Shankar, and he goes around and he's very big rascal actually, because in the name of being a sadhu and a guru, he tells people about how to get free from tension. And what other nonsense is he talking about?
The art of living.
The art of living, they call it. I call it the art of going to hell. With help from Ravi Shankar. So it's not the old sitar Ravi Shankar. It's a new one. It's some young guy with a long beard. And he's become very popular. And all these professional people, they're overworked and they have tension. And he tells them, just relax, feel good about yourself, and all this nonsense. Just cheating, simply cheating.
You went here in Zagreb.
In Zagreb also. Zagreb has become more unfortunate. So in the name, it's because he poses as a sadhu, that this is something spiritual. But it's not spiritual. It's just helping people to adjust to this material world, so that I'm feeling miserable in this material world. You're feeling miserable in the material world? Good, that's very good. We're very pleased to hear it. If you're feeling miserable, then you're a good candidate for understanding that this material world is miserable. Chant Hare Krishna. But you're feeling miserable. Oh, okay, all right. Well, I think you should just psychologically adjust a little bit and give up your what is that called?
Feeling of guilt.
No, what is it?
Feeling of guilt.
Feeling of guilt. What's that other word? Taboo. There's some word. This Freud uses. I can't remember because I'm a fool. Inhibitions. That's one word. Give up our inhibitions. See? Why you're feeling bad because we have all these inhibitions against sex. So, you should just give it all up. Give up all these taboos. See, you're not supposed to have sex with your mother, but if you feel like it, well, why not do it? Because, why suppress your urges? So these people are cheating people. But they become very popular because people want to avoid Krishna. And they also want to have this sense gratification of feeling spiritual. Oh, I'm so spiritual. I went to Ravi Shankar and he told me to feel good about myself. Wow, such a wonderful teacher. Why should you feel good? You're a rascal. Nonsense. You should feel bad. I'm forgetting Krishna. I'm a rascal. So now I should stop all this nonsense and surrender to Krishna. But we don't like to hear. We like to hear. Actually, I'm a multiple murderer and a child molester. But actually, I should feel good about it. You shouldn't have like these guilt. What is it? Give up your feelings of guilt. You shouldn't have these guilt feelings. So we're all multiple murderers. How many carcasses have we put into our stomach? Another hypocrisy of modern society. They say, oh, murderer, they're all murderers. They're all eating meat, slaughterhouse. And child abuse, it's very bad. They're all child abusers. Stick a child in front of a TV, you're a child abuser. Because you're filling them up with TV means this mature world is anyway illusion. It's illusion on top of illusion, and it's promoting Kam, Krodha and Lobha, the three gates to hell. Anger, lust, anger and greed. That's all that there is on TV. Lust means it's naked, semi-naked and all this kind of thing. And anger, violence, these are the two main things on TV, right? Sex and violence, and advertisements, which means it's promoting greed. Trying to sell you something you don't need. If you needed it, you wouldn't need an advertisement. You don't need it, therefore there's an advertisement. And they make you feel that you have to have it. Now I have to have this, and then you have enough money, then you have to work hard. This is how modern society is going on, by increasing our lust, and then we have to have more and more things, and it's just the whole society is going to hell. So putting children in front of a TV, that is child abuse. And if we don't teach children how to become Krishna conscious, that is child abuse. One is, according to Bhagavatam, one should not become a parent unless you can deliver the child from birth and death. Don't become a parent. I was just reading this morning, there's some interview with Prabhupada that's never been released before. It just came, they had some old films and they're in very bad condition, but by the latest technology they've recovered them. So there's some social worker coming to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was saying this homosex is very bad, the priests are engaging in homosex, this is, just see the condition of society. And the social worker said, well, that's your opinion, and someone else may have another opinion. Whatever, and all paths are the same, my opinion, your opinion. And Prabhupada was saying, no, there has to be self-control. And Prabhupada gave the example of also they're having contraceptive sex. And the social worker said, well, I do that. And Prabhupada said, well, why do you do that? Because me and my wife, we enjoy sex. We like it. But we don't have children. Prabhupada said, we don't have children, then why don't you just stop sex? Said, no, I like it. Prabhupada said, just see, you're supposed to be a social worker. You're supposed to be helping the society, and you yourself are in such a degraded condition. He told him straight on his face. Then what hope is there for society? And actually these social workers, they're the most, all these social workers, teachers, they're all pumping these things into society, all these degraded ideas. So our Krishna conscious movement is meant, as Prabhupada said, for saving human society in its darkest hour. Prabhupada said our Krishna conscious movement will go down in history for having saved human society in its darkest hour. So much in the darkest, dark ignorance that they think this is very advanced. But Prabhupada said this is the human society is its darkest hour. So the Krishna conscious movement is not really meant to become part of this society. Sometimes one says we should just integrate with society, but I tell them, I don't want to integrate with this society. I mean, maybe you do. But, I ran away from this. People say you're running away, you're escapist. Definitely want to escape from this horrible society. Definitely don't want to be a part of it. So lucky to have the shelter of Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet. And the last thing I want to do is reintegrate with this disgusting demoniac society. We don't reintegrate, you come and integrate with us. You take up Krishna consciousness, but we don't want to go back to your Jata Matata, but everything is the same, everything is, whatever you do is okay, and just chant Hare Krishna, and whatever else you do is okay, as long as you chant Hare Krishna. No. You have to take Krishna consciousness means according to Krishna's terms and conditions, not our terms and conditions. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Krishna consciousness means to do what is pleasing to Krishna. not that what we think Krishna should be pleased with. Krishna should be very happy because even though I don't follow any regulated principles, still I sometimes chant Hare Krishna. So Krishna, you should be grateful. That's not what Krishna says. Krishna says, Sarvadhamam mamekam sharanam vraja. You give up all your own ideas and take my idea. Take shelter of me. So devotees, they know everything, and they're very practical. We see that previously these great acharyas, they had such knowledge. People had good brains, and they weren't smoking dope from the age of 8. And there was sense control, and they were trained in this knowledge. So they had vast knowledge, shastric knowledge. Even today in India, you'll find some people very vast shastric knowledge. And even though we can learn a few shlokas here and there, we're not likely to catch up in this lifetime. Very vast knowledge. But at the same time, those who are devotees, even though they know so many things, but they're very clearly focused on understanding what is the important thing, what is the actual point of all knowledge. And that is to understand Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and I'm His eternal servant. And even if we don't have vast knowledge of so many different subjects, if we understand this one point, then that is the perfection of knowledge, and we don't need to understand everything else. So, as Prabhupada writes here, devotees' direction is practical. We're not otherworldly to the point of otherworldly means just like head in the clouds. We're just thinking of the other world. We don't have any connection with this one. The devotees are very practical. We know how to live in this world and be Krishna conscious, but not that we're enamored by this world. But we understand we're in this world due to our anadi karma phale paribhavarna vaja. We've fallen due to our karmic reactions. We're suffering in this ocean of birth and death. But Bhakti Thakur continues that paribhavarna vaja. Paribhare na deki upa. But I don't see any way to get out of this. He's taking the position of a conditioned soul, but actually he's shown us the way to get out of it. In other songs, he gives the way. Jeev jago, gora chandra, buddhalitra jama, ishacha. Enichio shodhi maya, nashibaro lagi, harinama mahamantra. Wake up, sleeping soul. How long will you sleep on the lap of the witch called Maya? I brought the solution, the medicine for this disease of material existence. It is the holiness. So take it submissively. So devotees know everything. We know everything. It means that we know Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God. We have to surrender. And we may not know how many windows were in the World Trade Center before it got fallen down to the ground. But we don't need to know. So many things. Not necessary. What we need to know, we know. That's all. Hare Krishna. Is there any questions about this? Who's got a slow motion camera? Who got their hand up first? Yeah.
There's a statement in Bhagavad-gita that successful yogi, that he take birth in aristocratic.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, it is stated in Bhagavad that Indra sometimes attacks those renunciates who have some material desire still, and he's afraid. So why is he afraid if they are not successful at the end of their practice? They'll take birth in wives, family.
No, the question is that why in Gita Krishna says that unsuccessful yogis they take birth in pious families. Then why is Indra afraid of yogis?
Because it stated that some renunciates they still have material desires, that Indra sends to them through Apsara.
Then Indra tries to disturb. Well, Indra's afraid that they are going to become successful, and then those yogis who they're performing austerities to go to the heavenly planets. That's not who Krishna is talking about in Bhagavad-gita. He's talking about people who are interested in spiritual perfection. That's very clear from the verse after that. Shuchiman Srimatangahe Yoga Rashtra Vicharite. They take birth in, they take unsuccessful yogis, they take birth in families of wealthy Vaishyas or in Brahmanas. And then Krishna says, Tatratang Buddhi Sanyogang Lavante Purvadeka. That on attaining such birth, they revive the consciousness of their previous life and they go on to attain full perfection. So Samsiddhi, full perfection, doesn't mean going to the heavenly planets. That means going to the spiritual world.
As far as I remember, in the commentary by Srinanda Maharaj, he spoke about sannyasis or enhances spiritual consciousness, not about yogis. Necessarily.
But they may go to the heavenly planets.
No, he said that sometimes some arrangements, some lady disciples comes and so on and so many of them.
That's stated in that's in a purport where it's stated that the demigods place obstacles in the way of sannyasis. And what does he say? That they may fall down by their lady disciples or something.
Like
but
to test.
Yeah, then?
Similarly like Indra,
Yeah, then?
Then I said it's not yogis who want to go on because devotees
in this case, yeah.
They don't want to go.
Well, even devotees, they may end up in the heavenly planets. If we're not careful, we could end up in the heavenly planets. If we're cultivating material desires side by side. What's actually your point? I'm not really getting it. You don't look satisfied. I think I'm not touching your point. If we're truly desirous to become perfect, then Krishna will arrange that. If we have some other desires, Krishna will also arrange to fulfill them. We get what... There are two factors on how we take birth. We get what we want and we get what we desire. Karmana daivanetrena jantrate. According to our activities and according to our desires, we get different bodies given by the demigods under the direction of the Supreme Lord. So we get what we want and we get what we deserve also. So if one is desiring Krishna but is also desiring some material sense enjoyment, then we may get some opportunity for that material sense enjoyment, which is an obstruction actually in advance with the Krishna consciousness. The two things are incompatible. So we may get that opportunity, but and then again we may get the opportunity. Prabhupada said that about Jayananda Prabhu said that if you had any material desire left, then you would have gone to the heavenly planets, and after enjoying that for many years, you'll come back again to continue your Krishna consciousness. But if you were thinking of Krishna at the time, which I think you were, then you will have gone directly to the spiritual world. So we have to be careful. If we cultivate material desires, then we may have... Prabhupada said that about Dhruva Maharaj also. He said that Dhruva Maharaj was lamenting because he was performing devotional service with the material desire, and he was lamenting, now I understood that actually the real thing is just to get pure devotional service, but now I have to enjoy all this material opulence for so many lifetimes because that's what I desired and Krishna gave it to me. So Prabhupada wrote in the purport that one should be careful not to cultivate material desires, otherwise we might end up like Dhruva Maharaj lamenting that now we have all this opportunity for material enjoyment. I only want to, really I should serve Krishna. Then, other questions?
We can notice that in our society nowadays there are so many wrong ideas, and these things you're talking about infiltrated in ISKCON. So how can we recognize it, and how can we fight individual?
Wrong ideas in ISKCON. How can we recognize? Well, if we understand Krishna consciousness according to Guru and Sadhu and Shastra, by reading Prabhupada's books very carefully and by associating with devotees whose understanding is clear. Now, a lot of this may depend on our own consciousness also, because, as Prabhupada said, if we want to be cheated, then we'll get cheated. So if we really want Krishna, then Krishna will arrange and we will get the opportunity. And actually Krishna consciousness, to understand the basic principles, it's very simple. Actually. Prabhupada made it very simple. Especially, Krishna consciousness by its nature is very simple. And Prabhupada particularly made it very simple. Prabhupada, very simple, clear, straightforward. Chant Hare Krishna, follow four regulated principles. Rise early, non-duality, serve Krishna. Go to Krishna. Of course, we have to give up material desires, but the process is by following this Bhakti. And especially the Bhagavatam is meant. Bhagavad-gita gives, as I was saying, in synopsis, but in Bhagavatam gives in details, and as Prabhupada writes in the preface to Bhagavatam, that by understanding the Bhagavatam, a devotee will be armed to defend himself from the onslaughts of atheists. So if non-devotional ideas enter among the society of devotees, those who are very clear in their understanding by their sincere desire to understand, then they can understand what is correct and what isn't, because it's a fact that various bogus ideas enter, and devotees, we've seen it, we've seen it and we are seeing it. So those who are not committed to understanding Krishna consciousness as by the standard system of Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, they'll end up with something else, which is very dangerous if we actually want to be Krishna conscious, because as we've seen, many people have become deviated from Krishna consciousness by mixing up other things which are supposed to be an additive to Krishna consciousness. And they may even preach so many things, and because devotees, I think, some of them are reading the newspaper more than Srimad Bhagavad-gita. The newspapers, you get all these modern ideas mixed in, and all these attitudes, because many of the attitudes seem to be coming more from Kami society than from devotee society. So, how can we drive it out? It's pretty difficult. Actually, the leadership should be very clear. In just establishing that in this movement, that we follow just Krishna consciousness Prabhupada has given, and then everything will be right. But if we want to mix it up with this, that, and the other in the name of being liberal and nice and accommodating, and then we end up with some kind of Western version of Hinduism, more like hippieism. Where everything is all right, everything, whatever you want to do, and everything is wonderful, and everyone is good, and don't criticize anyone. It doesn't matter whether you don't criticize, even if they don't follow the regulated period, is also good, because we have to understand they're also a human being, and they also have feelings and emotions and all this kind of thing. So you end up with a mess. It's not Krishna consciousness. It's not what Prabhupada came to establish. So what to do? Well, preach against it. Sabko Sannati De Bhagavan. Oh God, please give them good intelligence we can pray to Krishna. No, there's another question.
Yes, it's related also to this.
But actually, I'll just say one more thing here. That it's inevitable. I was just saying in Chakos that just after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left, and so many bogus ideas came out in his name. So whenever any religious preacher, after Jesus left, so many bogus things came out in his name. So it's inevitable that after Prabhupada leaves, then so many bogus things will come out in his name. So we should at least recognize what is the actual path given. And other people say, no, this is the actual path. So we can pray to Krishna for the sincerity to understand. It's not difficult to understand. And what were you going to say?
About what you said yesterday, it's related also on some his lecture about how we have to surrender to Krishna and stop being harassed with this. But one may feel that one decides, when the devotee decides to surrender completely, there is one feeling of suffering which comes out of giving up all attachment. It's completely unwilling. So one may start to develop this attitude of fear because it's going to be painful on the beginning, and later one may also hear that this narayanity level takes some time. So then he starts to think, oh, it's going to be painful also later on.
It's going to take some time. All right, let it take some time.
Yes.
Gradually.
Great.
I'll surrender to Krishna later.
So this way one may become discouraged with this.
Yeah, if one is a fool. One is a fool. Just like, if you have a big boil, I know this because I had many boils in the past. So, scars to cuts. So when there's a huge boil and your arm's all swollen up, then what do you go to the doctor. And you know what is he going to do? He's going to cut it with a knife. So it's going to be painful and you don't look forward to it, but you know that afterwards it's going to be a lot better. If I don't do that, then maybe it'll turn to gangrene and the whole arm will have to be amputated. So one has to act on the platform of intelligence. So it's going to be painful, but it's not as painful as not taking the treatment. Nothing comes easy. There may be some pain. That pain is beneficial. If we think I will avoid pain altogether, it's not possible. If you think I will just go on with material life or make some kind of compromise, then you have to suffer the pains of material life. So you choose. You want the pain of repeated birth and death in this material world, or do you want the slight pain of giving up some attachment to our suffering? You have to choose. What do you want? You want Krishna or you want not? Make a decision. If you think there's something in between, that's another form of delusion. There's nothing in between. Either go to Krishna or you don't go to Krishna. There's not like in Christian mythology, there's this limbo stage, something in between. There's no such thing. Think about it. What do you want to do? What do you want? Think about it intelligently.
Spomenuo se kao 16 krugova, 4 određena principa da se na kraju života vraćam kući. I mene zanima da me pogrešim da sam mantri 32 kruga i je to ono.
You mentioned that we should chant from all the way to you said it can go back into Krishna. When should we see the prompt chanted 2 rounds?
When you say 60 means minimum 60. It's not wrong to chant 32 if we have time, because we also have various services to perform in the Sankirtan hall. On Janmashtami, if you're not busy with various things, chant extra rounds, especially on these days. Janmashtami, Kalashi, chant extra rounds. Let's say something. Make this the last question.
I heard you mention in the past that the devotee knows that universe and everything belongs to Krishna and has to be engaged in Krishna service. But it seems that even when we are practicing Krishna consciousness, there are a lot of allurements of heavenly offerings. And
at every second, every moment.
And there is
Maya doesn't go on holidays.
And there is a tendency that actually we are becoming victim of that,
yes.
of that spirit. Even while practicing some austere, renounced style of life.
Yeah, and then we start to think, you see, I'm so austere, and others should notice. And then it becomes our self-gratification.
And
so how to overcome it?
Yes.
By the process of sadhana bhakti, chanting purifies, and the hearing, we have to regularly hear. We are not the enjoyer. Everything we do is meant for Krishna's enjoyment. This is the process. Regular hearing. And then applying that in our lives. It's just like when we're driving, we have to constantly adjust the steering wheel. If you think, well, I know how to drive, so there's no need to adjust the steering wheel, that doesn't make any sense. You have to adjust, so the same thing, we have to regularly hear, because the tendency is to go off. Of course, there's also a thing called tuning the car, so it doesn't go off so much. If it goes off a lot, then you have to have the, what's that called when it's called tuning, what's that called? You have to take it in and then get the steering adjusted. I can't remember. So, or maybe the tires need changing, something. If we're going off a lot, then we know there's some basic adjustment needs to be done. But even if we're more or less on the right track, then still we have to constantly hear, otherwise we'll go off.